Hello, today is our final day in New Mexico. Very sad to be leaving here, but very excited to take you along on where we're heading next. So we've got one more hike in store for the state of New Mexico, and then we are traveling on Route 66 westward to Petrified Forest National Park, where we're gonna camp tonight. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, I hope you can hear me over the wind, but we are at El Malpais National Monument. Malpais is Spanish for Badlands, and that term is used to refer to the lava flows that are present here because they're very unforgiving and inhospitable, specifically to humans. This is such an underrated, beautiful area. It has 200 million year old sandstone bluffs all along the mountains, and it also has a lot of these really interesting black lava bedrock formations that the park ranger, when we were speaking to him, told us were anywhere from 3,900 to 60,000 years old. It's a really cool mix of volcanic activity, mountains, desert, all in one, and just a really cool sight to see. I feel like these national monuments, national historic sites, some of the ones that kind of fall under the radar are a perfect way to still get out, enjoy the gorgeous public lands, but maybe without the crowds or the long wait times. When we went, we were the only people in the visitor center, and we actually got to have a really great one-on-one conversation with the park ranger who was at the front of the visitor center. They still have a gift shop, and there were a lot of cool things there. There were stickers and books and shirts and hats and all kinds of things like that. Historic Route 66 was created in the 1920s. Mostly because oil and coal company owners were like, hey, we have these plants and we don't really have an efficient way to transport our coal and oil, so can we get something that helps us with that? The route goes from Chicago, Illinois, all the way to Santa Monica Pier in California. By the end of World War II, you had this middle class who was now interested in going on vacations and was interested in just traveling more. And Route 66 really helped kind of spearhead that culture surrounding vacations. It allowed people to take road trips where they may not have been able to in the past. And so it was very popular for that reason. And it's very scenic. It goes through a lot of beautiful points. Over the coming decades, though, the overall transportation system in the U.S. began to rely more and more on interstate highways, and eventually in the 1980s, Route 66 was officially decommissioned just because there were more efficient and larger highways that spanned across the US. As a result, unfortunately, there were a lot of small towns along this route, specifically in rural areas, who did develop an economy based on tourism along Route 66. There were a lot of businesses that slowly went out of business, and these towns just kind of went a little quieter, so I've heard, but we're going to check that out. We aren't doing the whole thing I would love to try to someday. You can't officially do the whole route anymore from Chicago to Los Angeles. There are some, to my understanding, there are some areas where the road just ends, or it's private, or there's construction being done, and you do have to go on the main highway that it's adjacent to. But along this stretch of New Mexico to Arizona, there are quite a few signs that say historic Route 66 this way, so we are trying to take them and trying to follow our map as best as we can, so I'm excited to check that out. We are in a very beautiful spot just outside of Petrified National Park, which we will be visiting tomorrow. We're just gonna get settled in. His paws. Go get Jack.
So we just arrived in Petrified Forest last night, right?
Yeah.
We're just outside of Petrified Forest. We finished, I think, the last section of Route 66 that we can drive on. I think after this, it just merges back with I-40. So I think we did all of our Route 66 driving, all of the historic Route 66. It was a pretty interesting drive. It was fun to do, though. We got to see some kind of cool towns. It was also a little sad. Honestly, a lot of the towns, a lot of them were pretty run down. You can kind of tell the business had left once the traffic stopped. The roads were really bumpy, though, which was a little more unfortunate. We were getting tossed all over the place as we were driving down the road. Not nearly as smooth as the interstate, but that's all right.
There were some sections that had been like maintained recently or updated. There were some parts that were smooth, but yeah, there were a lot of spots where you could see the bumps as you were coming in. Yeah.
Besides that, it went pretty well. There was 2 big hangups though. Usually Google Maps is really good at this. That's why I use it a lot of the time over Apple Maps. It seemed to have great like data on like how routes are evolving over time. We got stopped randomly by construction that wasn't marked 2 times, which really sucked. We had to trace our steps back like 5 miles each time, and it just took us way out of our way, so I guess plan further in advance than we do and really follow your route.
I feel like there is probably some kind of guide or some way that you can do the whole route in a more accurate way than we were. We were just kind of pulling off when we saw an opening. The parts that had construction, they gave you so little warning. I think it was only about 1,000 feet that it was like, road closed, 1,000 feet.
We were barely up on it by the time we actually noticed it. So,
yeah.
And it's just, these are kind of remote-ish roads. It's not like it's a super used road where there's tons of on-ramps and off-ramps to the interstate. We had to backtrack like 10 minutes to get back on I-40, pass it, and get back on Route 66 again. And that was basically how it went. We had like no notice, found some construction, had to backtrack about 10 minutes, hop back on I-40, drive past the road closure over on Route 66, get back off so we could follow Route 66 again. And then immediately after that we found another road closure construction work with like no notice either. Backtrack 10 minutes and continue. And then after that Route 66 was done and we had to merge on. So we're at Petrified Forest now. We're going to go check out some hikes. From everything we've heard, this is kind of just a day trip park. It's not really a space people stay at for a while. But we found a couple cool hikes. We'll take you along for that. And yeah, we'll check that out. And then after that, we are continuing to Flagstaff today. Really excited about that.
We're now leaving Petrified Forest National Park. We talked to one of the rangers in the visitor center, and he said that this is the only national park that is on the historic Route 66, and it is the only national park with a dog park in it, so I thought that was really cool. Most US national parks are not very dog friendly, unfortunately, just in order to preserve the area and protect wildlife and just conserve the land. Dogs generally are only allowed where cars can go, so think parking lots and roads. They're usually not allowed on hiking trails, but there are a couple national parks that are very dog friendly. They even have park ranger programs. I don't know what all those entail because our dog, he tends to be a bit guarded, so we don't really do things like that with him. Overall, I think this is a super cool and interesting national park. Between the Petrified Forest itself as well as the Painted Rocks, the Badland formations, there was a lot of beautiful red landscape in the distance on our drive. I think it's a really interesting national park and definitely one you should go to if you're interested in just driving around and learning about history and geology, and just seeing a whole bunch of different landscapes in one. However, in terms of hiking and actual activities to do, it is kind of limited. So for that reason, I wouldn't necessarily make a trip out of just coming here, but I would most definitely recommend it if you were driving Route 66 or even just doing a little Arizona road trip to include it. And something that I think is really important to note is the hiking trails that we did go on, they were paved. One was paved pretty well, it was like sidewalk quality. The other was more like asphalt, still paved nonetheless, but definitely a little more bumpy. And most of these were like overlook or viewpoint hikes. The most popular ones were around a mile long.
So we're kind of learning this as we go, but it's definitely made itself apparent. If you're ever in any of these areas, go talk to the national parks staff, go talk to the rangers. Every place we've stopped at now, we've had great conversations. We found some great recommendations from them. I mean, they know this place better than you. They can really kind of help you out and guide you around. And, you know, maybe you can have a good conversation at least. So talk to your local ranger whenever you're at a national park.
The park ranger that we talked to on our way out actually recommended 2 spots to us in this general direction, so we're heading to check those out now. Route 66 is basically just I-40 from here until Winslow, Arizona. It does break off for a little bit in that town, so I'll check back in when I have something cool to share about the route. Alright, Flagstaff is unfortunately the last part of Route 66 that we will be doing. We are now heading south after our stay in Flagstaff. We just pulled into a Planet Fitness. We are going to get showered and just kind of get ready for the night. So I'm going to end the video here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date with where we head next, and we'll see you for the next adventure.